All right, let's sit down. Oh, something different today. What's up, guys? Chunky back here for Throne Talk. Now, it's something quite different. If you've noticed, bit of a different setup here today. I'm at my beach house. I had to watch Game of Thrones, obviously, being the last episode. It's not going to be a long one. It's not going to be a traditional one. I'm not really going to sum up too much of the plot. Obviously, spoilers. So go watch the episode. If you come this far with me, then obviously you would have been up to date, or if not, seen the last episode. So welcome. It's just a very quick chat, no more than 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to try and keep it under. It's very rough. It's going to try and do this in one cut, without any editing. So wish me luck. I'm going to start off with my overall thoughts. Overall, this final episode, the series final or finale, was okay. It was satisfying in parts, but my overall opinion is that it's a victim of its length. It's a victim of its own length. If the season had have been longer, it could have kept up with these plot points, twists, and decisions, and then probably would have benefited from spending more time explaining uh, and overall wrapping up those character moments and storylines. Now I'm going to go through the brief plot anyway. Things that stuck out to me. I'm not going to cover every single moment like I have been. The first thing that stuck out to me was the first scene with Jaime and Cersei, where Tyrion finds them basically crushed under the rubble. Um, like I said last week, I know that Game of Thrones has always been, I would say, very good. Maybe not an expert because this last season's been anything but very good at subverting expectations in the right way. Not being satisfying as such, fulfilling, I think is the word. There's a difference between the two. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the way you want to see characters go, but a lot of people have been able to at least accept that this is a way they could have seen their characters going out. So I have to commend Game of Thrones for that, but at the same time, it's a very underwhelming ending for both Cersei and Jaime. So moving on, the main thing that I liked was I'm talking about Daenerys now, that she was ruling technically the Seven Kingdoms now. She was the official ruler. Everyone had accepted it. And we were still obviously answering those questions about the massacre itself and her moral choice and her decisions to actually kill all those innocent people. I didn't like that she didn't actually address the fact that she said she was trying to deal with Cersei by killing the innocent people, but she's sort of admitting, yeah, they're innocent, but she was using that as a weapon, so I had to kill them to get back at her. She's never been like that. She's always separated the innocents from the leader itself. She's always sort of seen the innocent people as a victim of the leader. I don't know why she didn't see these people as a victim of Cersei. Like, it's not like no other leader has tried to weaponize the innocence of their civilians and townsfolk. It didn't make sense. I think she went back on her word there, especially with all the good that she'd done in the past 4 seasons, 4 seasons, 7 seasons. So yeah, that was a weird motivational choice and a few weird discussions. Now I did like the discussion between Tyrion and Jon, when Tyrion had basically refused to continue being the hand to Daenerys. Interesting conversation. Obviously, we've been through it 1,000 times. Jon, you got to do this now. She can't stay on the throne, and he did. For the most part, he dealt with it. One of the next scenes was the conversation in the throne room. Daenerys is talking to Jon about, just rule with me. Let's do this together. You know what I'm going to do. Join me. And I thought, here and now, all right, she's trying to get him on her side so that she won't have to deal with him as an enemy of sorts, which was okay. I understand in the Game of Thrones she was trying to be more political, maybe conniving, because she was already the Mad Queen at this point, so we couldn't really trust her considering what she'd done. And then and there, Jon just sticks her with the knife. He's like, all right, I made my decision. You can't rule. You've done the wrong thing, and that's how you pay. And she did for the most part. It was almost instant. It was a instant resolution of sorts. I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy with that. I don't know if I was. My main point is that even though, oh, sorry, I'm covering the camera. Even though I wasn't necessarily happy, I saw it coming. Obviously, a lot of people had predicted the fact that Jon and Dany were going to probably either die in each other's arms as the season started. As the season continued, it was going to be Jon killing Dany. I think a lot of people did predict that. So I was okay with it in the sense that she had to die. I did think she was going to die. I thought that's actually how it was going to happen. I thought she was going to die in his arms, and that was that. Then the thing that I was impressed with was, I don't know which dragon it is. Sorry, my contrast is off. I don't know which dragon it is, but the dragon that rocks up, is it Drogon? Drogon, I think it's Drogon. Basically sees what he's done, doesn't kill him, understands he's a Targaryen or important to Dany, either way, and burns the throne. It's a really good way to wrap things up because there were never supposed to be any winners in the Game of Thrones. So symbolically, it made sense that if there was no throne, no one could claim it. I like that. I like that. And the next plot point that I want to round out on is basically Bran having assumed the role of king, or basically being chosen to rule Westeros. It's an interesting choice, but it also feeds back into the whole point that his story arc was never really fulfilled in the way we thought it would. Like I said, once again, subverting expectations. But I don't think this is the way you should have subverted expectations. I think a good way was that Bran would have seen who was going to be king all along. Maybe it was Tyrion, maybe it was Jon, whoever, and there was a conversation about, look, I've actually been to the future, or I've seen it. This is your destiny. Because there was that talk about... I'm going to change the camera angle, sorry. There was that talk about not having a choice. It's like, this is your duty. You have to do it. It outweighs everything else. So I don't really think I was fulfilled. But I don't think it was terrible either. Like, it's a good choice. He's a good character in and of himself as far as personality. So, yeah, in some weird way, it makes at least a little bit of sense. And finally, what we see after that decision to make Bran king is pretty much just, I want to say, strange fan service and setups for future series. It comes off as weird. So after all that is said and done, the actual finale, the last few minutes, focus a lot on the Stark family. Sansa's now at Westeros, Winterfell, I should say, is now an independent kingdom. So Sansa is now the Queen of Winterfell. Arya just basically wants to go west of Westeros and explore those unexplored regions. And Jon, basically, as a punishment to killing Dany, gets sent back to the Night's Watch, where he sort of assumes leadership of the Wildlings as the show ends with Jon going north of the Wall. It's decent setup. Like, if this actually... If there was a couple more seasons, right, and this was how this season ended, and going into a whole new world where we maybe could have skipped forward years in the future, and had seen how these characters panned out, I think that would have been favourable, to be honest with you. Like, if they sort of built it up as a finale to this era, to this story arc, to this huge Westeros story arc, I would have bought that. I think that would have been an interesting way to keep viewers engaged, because they were engaged 8 seasons in. I don't think it was necessary that you ended the series, but yeah, just a really interesting way to set things up going forward while having some sort of resolution for this story arc for all these characters. It's okay if characters die, because we're okay to set up new ones and build on some new story arcs, and even with the existing characters, that they have more to give in different ways. I think that was really interesting, but it seems like we're not getting it. So overall, this episode was okay, but my worry and prediction going into this episode was that it wasn't, the season wasn't long enough, number one, and this episode, no matter how long it was, wasn't really going to be enough to wrap up all those plot points, questions, and issues I had with the season up until this point. So to wrap it up, guys, I swear I'm almost done. I know I've gone overboard. I'm almost at 10 minutes. To wrap it up, there are a few things I'm still disappointed about. The Night King, that was just incredibly disappointing. There were no twists there. There were no last-minute additions. There were no explanations. There were no mentions. Bran's powers and Bran's importance wasn't really highlighted. Yes, he was the king, but they didn't really do a good job up until this point of describing why he was more important than the Three-Eyed Raven, because the Three-Eyed Raven was supposed to top all else, even the throne, because he could see everything more than a king, more than a human. So it's not really an answer. That wasn't really an answer to my question. Arya's whole brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, whatever that rubbish was, it's been hinted at all season. It's been used symbolically. It's been used with camera angles and all this thing highlighting eyes of characters and yada yada yada. All that rubbish. I don't think that was. I don't think that was. An impressive payoff either, if a payoff at all. There were just things that were lacking throughout the entire season, which have been built up so long before what is the final episode. The whole Night King story arc was seasons, like multiple seasons, only to be dealt with in one episode. And you could tell that there was a sense that this whole season was being rushed. I do think deep down inside that this season was a victim of its own length. Like I started the episode with, I think that overall, the prequels and stuff might answer more about the Night King, the Blood Moon, whatever it is, about the forest people, because that did seem like an interesting origin. But given the characters after the origin, well into their existence, had so much interesting plot points and stories to provide this particular series, Game of Thrones. No prequels, no sequels, nothing. I think they're important enough in here that they should have deserved more. That's the victim of adaptations sometimes, especially without the original source material and the original creator, George R. R. Martin, behind it. George R. R. Martin infused so many characters, plot points, and just moments into his books that it does become hard to bring it over, especially to a television series. It's obviously got the length there with multiple episodes, more so than movies. But yeah, it just didn't really. It sort of lost its way. It didn't really tie all those loose ends together as well as I thought. But it's sad because I feel bad for the true fans, because I had this expectation going in, and I've been watching Game of Thrones now for 7 years. I actually jumped on board at the end of the first season. So when I started watching this, the second season was just coming out. It was fresh. And going back, being nostalgic and looking back through all that, I am a little disappointed. Sure. It doesn't take away from how good the series has been in its past, and it doesn't take away from the moments that I enjoyed in this particular season, because there were a lot. There were a lot. As far as visually, yes. The battles, yes. There were some interesting payoffs with characters like Clegane Bowl, and even someone I forgot to mention, like Brienne, and Jaime. Their arc developed pretty quickly into the 8th season, only to have it stripped away. But while it was there, it was impressive. I enjoyed developing these characters in ways that we didn't thought would either come to fruition or be as satisfying as we thought. Obviously, we have huge issues with the season going forward. The 5th episode was very controversial in tearing down some of those series-long story arcs, and episode 3 was controversial for dealing with the Night King in such a rapid way. But overall, looking back on the series, it's been impressive. It's been a good feat. I think they should be proud of it. Season 8 is definitely not all it was hyped up to be. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. It isn't. It's not terrible. I don't probably hate it as much as the true fans, but I can admit that it's got some glaring flaws. And we could have gotten more. I think we deserved more, really. And it's not to say we're entitled as such, but given we know what to expect, not because we've become selfish or demanding as such, but because we like Game of Thrones, because we were given such quality in the past. I think we've just come to expect a certain standard, which the show admittedly upheld for a number of years. I mean, a lot of people I know and I have these conversations with like Game of Thrones up until its 3rd or 4th season, because those first 4 seasons were very good. That set themselves not in an action landscape, but with the politics and the dialogue and the writing, sewing together interesting, believable characters. It was good, and I'm one of the I guess people on the other side, or just people that do enjoy those latter half of the series, I should say, your 5, 6, and 7 for that matter. I did have plot holes and issues with those seasons, but I do think that they upheld a lot of the quality and a lot of what Game of Thrones was known for at that point in time. So it's sort of really hard to say that Game of Thrones has been bad, because it hasn't. It hasn't been bad, so I think that's why we've been sort of scorned by such a underwhelming final season, because of the length. If this was 10 episodes and we had ended, if we hadn't changed the 6 episode structure and more extended it, so up until this point in time we had dealt with the characters and the story acts the same way we still would have had problems, but I would have been more forgiving if there were 4 more episodes to go, and then you were developing those characters in interesting ways and dealing with some of the plot holes that didn't get addressed, like the Night King coming back, the Night Army still being in existence, something like that, because obviously you built up to these Targaryen symbolism, Targaryen symbolism with the Night King, which was never really developed or even explained, for that matter, as much as we have to put together as an audience. I do think that we deserve that much. We deserve some sort of payoff. Like I said before, there's a difference between satisfaction and fulfillment. And even though the two are closely linked, they can't be viewed as exactly the same, because while I wasn't satisfied with a lot of the things in Game of Thrones early on, like the Red Wedding as such, that's not a satisfying episode to watch. But because the circumstances are important, and the show followed on those footsteps in important ways and dealt with those characters in important ways going forward, especially the enemies, and then developed other storylines as a result, like Arya coming back to the Frey house and dealing with them like that. That's where the fulfillment was. So you didn't actually give the audience long enough to fulfill them at later stages in the season, because you were just consistently pissing them off. And we think, yeah, all right, we're entitled, but somewhere down the line, you've proven yourself before, so we've come to expect it. And if we don't get it, it's not us being at that point, is it us being jealous, or no, sorry, not jealous, selfish, or is it you guys being slack, or the writers, or whoever had the most pulling power? Something's got to give. And we're allowed to criticize that, I think, because it's been such a steady, impressive series. So that's all I have to say. I know I've gone way overboard. If you're still with me, thank you, guys. Thank you for the terrible lighting, the different setting. I know it's been a weird one. I haven't really edited this. You've seen me, I've done it in one cut. That's how long I can talk for, guys. You just see how much I edit out of my other videos. But this concludes Throne Talk. So thank you so much for being on board. Thank you so much for watching. Like the vid, comment below if you have anything to say about Game of Thrones. I'd love to hear what you guys all think, and most of all, guys, subscribe. Thank you so much for the support, guys. This is Chunky. Thanks for stopping by my world, and I'll see you soon. Take care.